Okay, it is 2 p.m., so we're going to go ahead and get started. I love your background there, Shelley. I haven't seen one quite like that yet. So welcome to this training session, just orientating you to Zoom. All of these training sessions that are happening this week are being recorded, so you can view this one or any of the others again at a later time. We have muted everyone in this session. If you do have a question, please use the chat feature located at the bottom of the screen to send us your question, and we'll kind of monitor those and answer those either throughout or at the end of this session. So I want to start by sharing a little bit more information about the training sessions this week. If you're brand new to remote or online teaching, we recommend that you visit and explore the resources on the K-State Keep Teaching website at ksu.edu/keep teaching. The Preparing and Planning page under the Remote Teaching and Learning Resources tab has a checklist of steps to get you started. The homepage of the website also includes getting started checklists for students and faculty. I'm going to provide that link and a few other links here in the chat box in just a moment. As we rapidly transition our classes using various remote teaching options, we want to encourage you to keep things as simple as possible. This session is going to focus on practical steps that you can implement right away. If you have additional questions after today's session, please send them to gcid@k-state.edu. This email is being monitored by Global Campus instructional designers, and all inquiries will be responded to as quickly as possible. You can also contact the IT help desk at 785-532-7722 or via email at helpdesk@ksu.edu. I'm going to go ahead and drop all this information into the chat box, and then Shelley can go ahead and get started. Again, please continue to watch the K-State Keep Teaching training sessions page, because we are putting new sessions out there at different times. So if you have any questions or if there's more information you want to learn about, please be sure to let us know, and there may be a session available on it later on. Shelley, if you want to go ahead and get started, take it away.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Janelle. So hopefully everyone can hear me. Today's training is mainly going to go over some tips and tricks for all those new Zoom users out there. We're going to go through how to get started using Zoom as a teacher, and then some of just the best practices to keep in mind for when you are teaching a large number of students virtually. So the first thing I want to talk about to get started is, what is Zoom? So Zoom is a web-based video conferencing software that K-State has purchased a site license for. It is available for all faculty, staff, and students at K-State to use for free. Meeting sizes can go up to 300 participants by default. We also have a couple large meeting licenses that allow us to go up to 500. Those are handled on a per request basis and can be, you can just email me a request if you think you're going to be going over 300 participants. Luckily, we really haven't had very many of those this week so far, but if that is something that you anticipate in the future, please just let me know. The good thing is only the host of the meeting actually has to be the one who signs in with their EID and password. So technically, you know, for this particular training, since I'm the one hosting, I was the only one who really needed to sign in with my EID and password. Everyone else, all you need to do is, as long as you have the meeting ID or the link that has been sent out in an invitation, or you found it posted on a website or whatever, if you just click that link, you don't actually have to sign in using your EID and password. So that's kind of a nice feature there. Moving on, I wanted to point out our Zoom branding page. So let me go ahead and switch to the website that I have pulled up here. So all K-State Zoom information can be found on this page. To get there, it's either ksu.zoom.us, or you can just type in zoom.ksu.edu and it will redirect you to this page. A couple of things I wanted to point out before I move on. There are some quick links over here on the right-hand side. The first one is how you would download Zoom for the local desktop client. I'll go ahead and show you what that looks like. The download that you'll want is just this first one, the Zoom client for meetings, and that again is for the desktop client. Going back to the branding page, the next link is how to manage your Zoom profile. There's a lot of good things you can do to set up, special settings. You can access scheduling a meeting, starting meetings from here, and we'll go over all of that later. But that link there on our branding page helps you get to your profile page. The Zoom Support Center is something managed by Zoom, the company themselves. It is a really great resource. It has a lot of videos on how to, a lot of step-by-step instructions for all of their features. So if there's something that you can't remember from this training, or something that comes up in one of your classes, or just a feature that we didn't talk about here today that you want to learn more about, all you would have to do is type in a keyword up in their search bar, and it'll come up with if they have a video associated with it, or just a step-by-step instruction and more information on how to use those specific features. Okay. Two other things on the quick links. One is the Accessing Zoom article that we have written. That's going to show you how to get signed into Zoom using your K-State credentials. We will go over this in just a moment. And then the last one is just a one-page document that is all things related to the desktop client, how to sign into it, how to share meetings, how to schedule meetings. So it's just kind of a one-page resource that a lot of people tend to just print out and leave available. One update that we still need to make to this document, I know over on the right-hand side it says meetings for more than 100. Our meeting limit used to be 100, but now it is 300. So if you see that, don't be worried that you will be cut off at 100. Our default now is definitely 300, and we are working on getting this document updated. Okay, let me go back to the PowerPoint now. Okay, so how do you get started using Zoom? So if you're wanting to use the desktop client, essentially you would need to download it from that download page that I showed you earlier. And then I will switch back over to the instructions on how to sign in using that desktop client. So once you have it downloaded, you will click on the sign in button. And then because we have purchased a site license to have pro accounts for Zoom, not free accounts, you do have to make sure you're signing in with this SSO button. That will direct us to the K-State site license. Instead, if you were to just start typing your EID and password in these boxes over on the left-hand side, it would actually redirect you to a free Zoom account. And normally, free Zoom accounts would end after 40 minutes, but I believe because of the pandemic, Zoom has lifted that to unlimited meetings. But to get you pointed in the right direction, you really want to use the K-State site license. It's just going to make things easier down the road in case you do come up with any complications. So make sure you are using single sign-on, especially if you're using the desktop client. So you would click on single sign-on. It would be, the domain would be KSU, and then once you click continue, you will be able to get to our K-State, the purple EID and password sign-in, and that's how you know that you're logging in correctly. Okay, other ways to sign in if you're not using the desktop client. You can actually use our branding page. If you're already signed into other K-State resources like I am here, you'll see that you're signed in up here. And then you can actually start scheduling and getting started with Zoom just from these quick buttons that we have on our branding page. Other ways that you can do that, there's a plugin within Canvas. So if you don't already have the Zoom plugin, it's found under the Settings tab. So going to Settings, and then you would just find Zoom down here, and you would want to bring it up into the course navigation. It's under the Navigation tab. But once you have that, essentially all it does within Canvas is it gives you a quick link to your profile page, where then you can start scheduling and starting meetings from your profile page, and that is within Canvas. And then the last place I wanted to show you how to get started with Zoom, if you prefer, on our K-State Connect page, you can actually get to it as well. You would need to make sure that in the preferences down below, the checkbox that says show Zoom is selected, and then you'll be able to see your Zoom controls right here. Essentially, they're just the same quick buttons that you would see on our branding page. Okay, let me go back to the PowerPoint really quick. And then Janelle, right now I'm not actually monitoring the chat, so if there is something that is urgent for me to answer, please feel free to interrupt me. And if not,
Okay,
I will, go ahead.
Okay, no, we're doing okay so far. We kind of got some clarification on that 40-minute limit, but just making sure that they're logged into their through K-State should
Yeah,
solve
if
all
you are
that.
connected to Zoom through the K-State sign-in page, your meeting times are unlimited. Okay. All right, so we've gone through how to get signed in. Next will be how to actually schedule meetings. So I've just done a couple screenshots. If you're using the desktop client and you're signed in correctly through single sign-on, you'll see there is a schedule button here on the desktop client. If you're on our branding page, you'll see a schedule meeting button, one of those quick buttons up there at the top. If you are on your profile page, this will be the same for if you're just, linking to your profile page on a web browser, or if it's within Canvas, you'll see a schedule meeting button up at the top of your screen right there. Once you start to schedule a meeting, this is what it looks like from the desktop client. It might look a little bit differently if you were using a web browser instead to schedule your meetings, but all the same information is going to be there. So when scheduling a meeting, you'll want to give your meeting a topic. If it's only a one-time meeting, you're going to want to put your start date and time in there. Your duration, it's kind of a loose time for duration. If you put an hour and you end up going an hour and 10 minutes, like Zoom is not going to cut you off at any time. It's your meeting, it's unlimited. But so you don't actually even have to put a duration in there if you don't want to. I think the default one that shows up is 1 hour, but like I said, it's not going to cut you off. If you would prefer, if this is for your class for the rest of the semester and you just want to schedule it one time, you can absolutely do that. You can set it up to be a recurring meeting. Essentially, all that means on Zoom's end is they are going to use that meeting ID over and over again for whatever use case that you're using it for. You can, choose to create a meeting and only send it to your class that meets on Tuesday, Thursdays, and only use that for that class. Or I know a lot of admin groups who are just setting up a recurring meeting and using it to pop into any time of day that there's a problem or they need to get together as a group. So it doesn't have to be at the same time every day for a recurring meeting or the same time every week. It's just a meeting that's always designated for you to host that the number doesn't change on. When you're scheduling a meeting, you can either have Zoom generate the meeting number automatically. So essentially it would be a random 9-digit meeting or 9-digit number that's assigned to your meeting. Or you can choose what's called the personal meeting ID. When you first set up a Zoom account, your personal meeting ID will be a 10-digit number that is a random bunch of numbers. You can actually edit that to make more sense to you. I know a lot of people on campus change that to their office phone number if you have one. You can see the one I have here is a 785-532 number, which is an office phone number that I've set that personal meeting ID to. As far as when to choose what meeting, it's totally up to personal preference. I know some people who only want to use their personal meeting ID for every single meeting that they do, and that's totally fine. Others like to have more of a separation for each of the groups that they're dealing with, and therefore set up a random meeting for each of those separate groups. So keep in mind, if you do use your personal meeting ID for every meeting that you hold, and you invite students and faculty members and family members to all those different meetings, if it's the same meeting number, there's potential for a student to come into a faculty meeting, or one of your family members to come into a class or something like that. So just keep that in mind. The more times you share the number out, make sure you're sharing that out to the correct group of people that you're wanting to have access to that meeting. Okay, moving on. You can require a password if you'd like. For video, you can set that the video is on or off for participants and hosts at the beginning of your meeting, but keep in mind you can always turn your camera on and off as needed throughout the meeting. As the host, you have a little bit more control over that. You can actually turn people's cameras off. You can request that people turn their cameras on, but you can't force them due to privacy. For audio, I really recommend using this option over to the right, the telephone and computer audio. It will give you the most flexibility for your class in case a student or someone attending your meeting does not have a microphone. Right now, I'm using a headset, so that's a USB headset that goes back over into my computer. But if someone doesn't have access to that, or they don't have a built-in microphone on their computer, you can actually use a touchtone telephone to join the audio portion of your Zoom meeting. So that just gives you the most flexibility for your participants. For the calendar setting down here, that's essentially what you're going to use to send the information out to people. I typically use the other calendar settings because I think it's the most flexible. When you choose other calendars, essentially what it's going to do, it's going to give you a text box that you can copy all the meeting details and then paste that into whatever venue you want to use to get the information out to your participants. You can put it in an email, you can put it into a calendar appointment if you're using, a different calendar system. You can paste it directly into a page on your Canvas page, however you want to get that information out to your meeting participants. If you were using the Outlook desktop client, by choosing Outlook, it would automatically open up a new calendar appointment, but it does not work for the Outlook web application. It has to be the desktop client. Okay, and then moving on to the advanced options, I actually have another slide where I kind of made those a little larger. So the advanced options, the couple that I wanted to point out, enable join before host. That's I like to recommend that one, especially if you want your meeting participants to be able to start talking to each other before you as the host actually starts the meeting. That's good for a lot of collaboration sessions, just so that people can start talking before the meeting host joins. If you don't select that option, essentially what will happen is each participant will be put in a holding pattern until the host actually goes and starts the meeting. The next button that I like to select when I'm scheduling meetings is mute participants on entry. That will just try to, help keep things a little bit more organized in case there's a lot of noise in the background of one of your participants. As soon as they join, if they have their microphone unmuted, it might get really loud in the meeting. It also helps a lot if if you suspect some participants are going to be joining to the meeting late. It won't interrupt a presentation that's already going on if you decide to mute participants on entry. And then the last one that I like to point out is the automatically recording meeting. That is an option while you're scheduling. I have another section that I'm going to talk about recording in a minute, so I'll get to more details. And then the alternative host, that allows for someone to actually host your meeting before you arrive. So I'm going to use me and Janelle as an example. So since I was hosting this meeting, if she actually wanted to start the meeting before I was able to get there, I could, while scheduling, put Janelle's EID in this, and then she would be allowed to be the alternative host and start the meeting and control the meeting before I actually get there. And then once I can get to the meeting, I then take over those host controls again. The important thing to point out about this alternative host, it has to be the EID at k-state.edu, not KSU. And then the other thing is the person you're adding as an alternative host would have to have signed into our K-State Zoom site license at least one time previously to you adding them as an alternative host. Zoom accounts are not created automatically. You have to sign into the service first for your account to be created.
Shelley, can I add something that we've discovered in all of these trainings that we've set up?
Yes, please go ahead.
So we've been using a main account to set up several of these trainings, and I would recommend that you do not have automatically record meeting and enable join before host, because that has triggered a bunch of short recordings every time someone clicked on the meeting link before the meeting actually started.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Yeah, so if you have automatically record meeting, anytime somebody, gets into that meeting, it will make a recording. Even if the host is not in the meeting yet. If you have enabled join before host, it will record. So that's a really good tip. Thank you, Laura. Okay, so before I move on to starting these scheduling meetings, Janelle, were there any questions that I needed to address?
Yeah, one we'll wait and get to, I think, kind of at the end. The other one, it says for practicality or ease, would you recommend having one or several different meetings? I have several courses and will be available for virtual office hours. These would all be for students, so crossing student faculty is not a concern.
Sure. If it's different courses, to me, it would make more sense. Just the way I organized as a person, it would make more sense to have different meeting IDs for those different classes. If you're wanting virtual office hours for multiple classes, you can also set aside, a separate meeting ID just for your virtual office hours. But then it's going to require you to advertise, the different meetings and make sure your students understand which meeting is used for which purpose. So I think it's really going to depend on how you like to organize your information best, but I personally would choose the option to make multiple meetings.
Okay.
Anything else before I move on?
One more real quick,
Sure.
maybe a couple more. Can you host more than one meeting at a time?
Unfortunately, no. You can only host one meeting at a time.
Do all participants see when the meeting is recorded, not recorded by at least one person?
When you're in a meeting, so like right now, you should see a red dot that says it's being recorded.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Yep.
Somebody just asked if you can host more than one meeting at a time. I will be teaching 2 classes, and I thought of scheduling them once and then meet with the students again and again. Is that something that is possible?
So if it's for the same group of students, yes, you would be using the recurring meeting feature, but you can't host 2 different meetings simultaneously.
Oh, they are on different schedules.
Right, so you should be fine using that
Okay.
recurring meeting feature.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think I'm going to go ahead and continue, Janelle, and then maybe we'll pick up some more questions at the end. Okay, so we're in the middle of scheduling a meeting, and then once you're done and have all those selected, you would just go ahead and click the schedule button. So now once you have a scheduled meeting and you've sent all that information out to your participants, you as the meeting host, I want to go over how you need to start that meeting. So you wouldn't just click on the link that you have sent to all of your participants, because then the link won't know necessarily that you're the meeting host. So the best way to go ahead about starting one of the meetings that you have scheduled, if you're doing it from the desktop client, you would navigate to the meeting icon at the top, and then you would find that scheduled meeting that you have, and then use the start button that is associated with that scheduled meeting. If you're not using the desktop client and instead you're on your profile page, what you would do, you would see all your scheduled trainings or meetings showing up under here. And then what you would do, there is a start button over on the right hand side. You would use that to start your meeting. That way Zoom will automatically know, yes, you are the host of the meeting, and will give you host controls.
One more question.
Sure.
So I set up the schedule. I want to invite the students. Can I do that so that it automatically grabs all the email addresses of the students?
So that is not a feature within Zoom. That is a feature within your email or your Canvas or wherever you're using to send out this information.
So actually, when I schedule a meeting, it gives me a link that I copy and paste in one of the tools I have to email the group.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so once you have started your meeting, another feature that I wanted to go over today was how you go about recording a meeting. So this we already saw earlier. You can actually set up to automatically record your meeting before it starts and while you're scheduling it. Once you check on that button that says automatically record meeting, you'll have the option to either record locally or in the cloud. Locally means it will record on the computer that you're using at the time of your meeting. So right now I'm in my home office using a laptop at home. If I was recording this locally, it would save it to a folder on my computer itself. If I'm using in the cloud, it will record to a file storage system on Zoom's cloud that you have access to through your profile page. One thing I want to point out right now about Zoom recordings, especially the cloud recordings, due to the increased use of Zoom across the world right now due to the pandemic, I've noticed, and they've also posted on their status page, that Zoom cloud recordings are taking a little bit longer than normal to process. So once your meeting is over, Zoom will take that recording in the cloud and they'll condense it down and compress it so that it's not this really huge file that you have to share out. They compress it for you, and that it's the compression on the back end that's taking a little bit longer. So my advice for that, you can still choose local or in the cloud. It will still work. It will just take a little bit extra time if you're using the cloud. So at this point, all we can say is just be a little patient, and hopefully by the end of the day, your recording will be ready to go. So that's the automatic recording. If you don't want to set it up automatic and you want to do more of an ad hoc or on a per case basis, once you're actually in the meeting, down at the bottom, this is what the menu bar looks like. You'll have a record option to start and stop recordings while you're already in the meeting. And you'll still have the option to either record locally, so record on this computer, or record to the cloud. Okay, so before I move on to our next topic, are there any recording questions?
We don't have any recording questions, but we do have several questions if we could go ahead and address this.
Sure.
Is there something that needs to be downloaded to the laptop to add the desktop client? And they say they have the Zoom app on their laptop already.
Okay, so if you already have the Zoom app on your laptop, that is the desktop client. So that what it looks like, the icon is a blue rounded square with a white camera on the inside of it.
And there are a couple questions now about recording. Can any participant hit record or just the host?
Okay, so by default, only the host of the meeting can record. However, the host can allow other people to record. You would access that under the Manage Participant button. And when you click on that, you would navigate to the individual person you want to allow to record. There'll be a More button and then Allow Record. And then that person can then choose to either record locally or record to their cloud.
Okay. And can I record the shared screen and myself at the same time?
Yes. So Zoom recording by default, if you're sharing your screen, it will pick up not only your camera, but also what you're sharing. If you minimize your camera during the screen share so that you can't see your camera on the screen, then Zoom will no longer record your camera. So you have to actually be seeing both things at the same time. Also with the camera mode, so I know it might look a little differently for all you in the audience because I'm the one sharing my screen, but Zoom has what's called gallery view or active speaker view. Active speaker is where you can only see one person at a time, whereas gallery, you can see multiple people at a time. When you're sharing your screen, it moves all the cameras off to either the right-hand side or up at the top, depending if you're in full screen mode or not. And then you'll have a little icons up at the top that allow you to switch between seeing just one person at a time for the recording, seeing a list or, a line of different boxes, or kind of a group Brady Bunch looking, type of a box if that, triggers anyone's, nostalgia. But did that answer the question, Janelle, do you think?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
And then let's just get to a couple others right now. I'm going to kind of combine these.
That's fine.
But when you record to the cloud, where does the file go? Do you get a link to share it with others? And then kind of along with that, is it better to record to your computer or to the cloud?
Okay, so when you do record to the cloud, it will be accessible through your Zoom profile page. So you can only access your Zoom profile page through a web browser or through Canvas, which is done through a web browser. Even if the recording hasn't been compressed or finalized yet, you'll still have access to see that a recording was made, and then it'll just tell you that it's still processing. Once it's done processing, you should actually get an email saying your Zoom cloud recording is now ready. In that email, they'll tell you how to access that recording as the host of the meeting, and then also it will provide a link that you can share out to other people. So video management on campus is done a couple different ways. By all means, yes, you can go ahead and share the video recording directly from Zoom and have your students or meeting participants access that through Zoom's cloud. Or what you can do is download the video to a desktop or a computer of your choosing, and then you can use what's called Media Site, or you can even drop the video directly into Canvas if you wanted to. But there's a lot of different ways that you can go about with video storage on campus. So I know there's some other training sessions regarding Canvas and other video storage that you can access later. But I guess to make a long answer short, yes, you can share it directly from Zoom. Which one is better for you to use? That's more of a personal choice. If you would prefer to, oh, sorry, go ahead, Laura.
Jump in real quick. Right now, Zoom is focusing all of their attention on live synchronous meetings. So we're seeing a super slowdown in the processing of recordings to the cloud. So I would highly recommend, at least right now, that people go ahead and record to their computer instead.
Thanks, Laura.
Okay.
You want to go ahead and go on to your next topic, Shelley?
Yeah, and I see that some people have found the annotation feature, which is totally fine. I am going to go ahead and clear all those drawings right now to move on to my next slide. Okay, so the next topic I wanted to talk about is the feature called breakout rooms. So breakout rooms is a feature within Zoom that allows you to split your meeting up into up to 50 different sessions. There's a way to automatically assign those attendees and a way to manually assign those attendees. But instead of me talking about it and butchering it so much, Zoom actually already has a video specifically on breakout rooms. So I'm going to go ahead and share. It's only like a 2 or 3 minute video. So I'm going to go ahead and share that, and then we'll talk about it after the fact. So give me just a second.
Video breakout rooms allow Zoom users to easily place meeting attendees into sub-meetings for group discussion, activities, projects, and more.
Okay, and before I get too far, Janelle, can you just confirm you can hear the video?
Yes, I
Okay,
hear
thank you. I'll go ahead and start it again. Thank you.
To get started, log in at zoom.us and view the meeting settings section. Click to edit advanced settings and make sure that breakout rooms is checked. The next time you host a Zoom meeting, you will see the breakout rooms button at the bottom of the Zoom panel. While you are sharing your screen, the button is under the More menu. Click here to start using breakout rooms. Zoom will show the number of eligible participants. Choose how many rooms to create and let Zoom assign the participants automatically, or choose to manually assign for more control, as we'll demonstrate here. Create breakout rooms to proceed. Your breakout rooms are now available and participants are still in the main meeting. Float your mouse over the breakout room to rename or delete the room. Click to assign participants, check their names, and click Assign again. Do this for each breakout room. Your participants are now assigned. If you want to change an assignment, float your mouse over a participant name where you can move the participant to another room or exchange the participant with someone already assigned to another room. When you're ready, click to open all rooms. This will cause your participants to automatically move into their assigned breakout room. The list will indicate that participants have successfully connected when the gray dot turns green. Meeting participants will be prompted to join breakout rooms where they can speak on audio, show their webcams, share screen, and chat as normal. They can also ask for help to send a prompt to the meeting host. Participants can also choose to leave the breakout room anytime to be returned to the main meeting. Return to the breakout rooms list as the host, and you can choose to join any of the breakout rooms to offer assistance. You can broadcast a message to participants, and a banner will be displayed. This is great for instructions or timing announcements. Again, float your mouse over a participant name to move the participant. When you are ready, close the breakout rooms. Participants will have 60 seconds to finish their discussion and will be returned to the main meeting. Open the breakout rooms menu again to quickly reopen the same breakout rooms or to make new assignments. To learn more, visit zoom.us/live training.
Okay, so one reason why I wanted to share that over a video is just to also show how the share screen function works when you are wanting to share a video. So let me go ahead and switch back to my PowerPoint where I have some slides on that. So for screen sharing, by default in the meeting, it just comes up with cameras or just black boxes if anyone has turned their camera off. The screen share feature, actually anyone can share their screen who's connected to the meeting. It's not, by default set to that only the host can share. You can set that up if needed, but you can only share one screen at a time. So me and Janelle could not both be sharing our screens at the same time because I am sharing mine right now. If Janelle needed to share something, I would then go ahead and have to stop my share screen in order for her or any of the other participants to share their screens. But for anything that requires computer sound, you would select the share screen button. And then there is a box down here that says share computer sound. So that's how I was able to share the breakout video with all of you and allow you to hear what was going on my computer. When you're doing a screen share, you can either choose to do your entire screen or monitor, so everything that's on your desktop. In this particular example, I had 2 monitors that were connected. So you can either choose, your screen number 1, your screen number 2, or you can actually share just one application at a time. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm only sharing the PowerPoint application. And then when I was doing the web browser, I was just sharing Chrome with you instead of my entire desktop because I wanted to be able to focus on those individual things. If you are doing a teaching session where you're flipping back and forth between a lot of different programs, sometimes it's easier just to go ahead and share one screen at a time and then minimize and maximize those individual windows as needed. But if you have more practice with Zoom and you are comfortable using the switching the screen share function like I'm doing today, you can by all means just share those individual applications one at a time. I think that was all I had for screen sharing. Are there any questions on screen sharing before I continue?
I have one here. If you use 2 screens and have your PowerPoint on one and your presenter view on the other, how do you have students only see your PowerPoint slides?
Okay, so I can't remember how PowerPoint has it set up by default, but essentially one shows you the notes view and then one shows you the full screen view. You would just have to make sure when you're sharing your screen in Zoom, you would select that screen that has the full screen view of PowerPoint.
And then,
The way I'm doing it right now, I'm not using the full screen view of PowerPoint that allows me to see notes view. I'm actually using the reading view. So the bad thing about reading view is I can't see any of my notes. But if you have a PowerPoint where you don't have any notes, sometimes the reading view allows you to have a lot more things up on your screen and not take over everything on your screen. So that's the way I'm using it today.
so, and there's also just, I see you have whiteboard up there. So how to use the whiteboard when sharing the screen.
Sure. So whiteboard is an option if you just want a blank white screen. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and pull up a whiteboard right now. That allows you to, draw and annotate. You can freeform it if you want to. I am not an artist by any means, so I apologize. There's a lot of, more, shapes and preset circles if you wanted to be exact. There's a text on there. It's not just the person sharing their screen that can annotate, but actually anyone in the session can annotate. So feel free, if you're out there and you want to try the annotation feature, you can do that now. Because I am the one sharing my screen and I am the one who selected the whiteboard, I have more control over clearing those drawings. So I can clear all of my drawings and then leave other people's. So you see the red and black marks down here were done by other people. Or you can clear everything at the same time. You can also save any of those annotations, but they will not automatically, I don't believe they'll automatically save in the recording, or they might. I'm sorry, I'll have to look that up and get back to everyone. But yeah, there's a lot of cool tools in that annotation feature to be able to use. And you don't just have to use the whiteboard for annotation. You can annotate over any of your screen shares.
Okay, and then let's do one final question here. How do I record my lecture on Zoom, sharing my screen so I can just upload the video?
So just screen and voice. So essentially you would just hold a meeting with just yourself and turn your camera off and then share your screen and start your recording and make sure that your microphone is working properly.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So moving on from screen.
Just a sec before you move on.
Sure.
So if I'm having a write-on tablet, I can use it to write on it and have my voice on it. And if I hit the record button, that gets recorded.
And you're joining the Zoom session from your tablet? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yes. You can record any of your screen sharing.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so moving on to another feature that Zoom has, it's called the polling feature. It allows you to put questions up on the screen and have all your participants of the meeting answer those questions. To use this polling feature, you first have to make sure it's enabled on your profile page. So what I'll do right now. Actually, here, I'll just go through this first, and then if we need to show it, we can. But once you get to your profile page, essentially there's a settings button, like you can see here, where you can set up all your meeting settings, and just it's a checkbox that will slide over and enable that feature. First, to set up polling, you'll have to schedule a meeting first. And then once the meeting is scheduled and saved, you'll go back into that meeting from your profile page. So the one I have set up here was called training meeting. You'll have to click on where under the topic to go back and edit and add that poll for the meeting. So you can't set up the poll while you're scheduling. It has to be already scheduled, and then you go back and edit that meeting. And then once you get into the edit feature of that meeting, there's going to be a box at the very bottom that says add a poll. And then since you haven't created any polls yet, there'll be an add button. So once you do that, there will be a box that pops up that looks like this, where you can add a title for the poll and then type your questions. You can add as many questions as you want to individual polls. You can also add more than one poll. So if you for the first half of your lecture, you have one set of questions that you want to ask, and then later in the lecture, you have another set of questions that you wanted to ask, you would set up 2 separate polls for that situation. And then once you have all the details and the questions added, you would save the individual polls. And then when you're actually ready and in your meeting with your participants, you'll see this polls button down on your menu bar, and you'll be able to launch the polls from there. If you've created more than one, it will ask you which poll are you wanting to launch, and then you'll just have to tell or select the correct one for that time. And then you'll launch the poll, allow your participants to answer those questions. And then if there's another question, you would advance to the next question. And then once the polling is finished, what you'll do is you'll end the poll. And then at that time, Zoom is going to ask you, do you want to share the results? So do you want to share the answers to see how everyone in the meeting had answered those questions? And then be able to discuss why some answers were answered in a certain way. I think that's the only slides I had for poll. So are there any questions about polling?
If I have a different question, will it save the previous poll?
If I have a different question.
Maybe if you want to add in a question to a previous poll.
So you can't add poll questions during your live meeting. It has to be something that you have set up in advance before you actually start your meeting. And you can save and edit, and if you're setting it up for putting all your polls in there a week before your class or a day before your class, and you needed to change something or edit something, you can do that. Does that answer the question?
They do need to be, yeah, they do need to be set up prior to the
Yes.
Zoom meeting.
Yes, you would want to set them up before the Zoom meeting starts.
So where do they set up the poll initially so it can be put into Zoom?
Sure, you have to go back to your profile page. So you have to access the meeting. Let me go back. So this is kind of what your profile page looks like after you have scheduled a meeting. You would click on the training topic for that particular meeting, and that's how you would find this box at the very end of those meeting details.
Okay, I think that's it.
Okay, so that was the last specific feature in Zoom that I wanted to talk about. Now I just wanted to move on to just particulars about managing a meeting. We do have some articles on our branding page down at the bottom. These are articles that Zoom actually published, but some of them are specific for educating through Zoom and tips and tricks for teachers educating on Zoom. I recommend that you go and read through those. They have some really good information. I pulled some of the information just that I wanted to share with you during this training session. A couple of them are, if you are experiencing low bandwidth, or if you have any students in a rural area that have really low bandwidth, sometimes it's best to just ask them to turn off their camera instead. I know that doesn't help with, sometimes it makes you not feel as engaged with that student, but if their audio is starting to jitter a lot or you can't understand them, sometimes by turning off their video, it helps a lot. Next thing, mute all. So one thing I went over earlier, when you were scheduling a meeting, there's an option to mute before entry. Well, there's also an option to mute all. So if you get into class and everyone has their microphones unmuted and it's just, too much all at once, you as the host can actually go under manage participants and go ahead and mute everyone at once, just like a blanket mute, and then just start over again and only unmuting people one at a time if needed. Another thing I wanted to point out, if you are using chat, it's actually a really good tool. You can, by default, Zoom meetings are set up to allow for private chat, meaning, if I was the teacher and I had 30 students in the class and private chats were turned on, student A and B can be privately chatting without me being able to see those messages. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's not a good thing, so I'll just leave it up to you to be able to decide if you want to keep private chats on. If you want to disable private chats, you would do that in your meeting settings on your profile page. And then also, you can save chats even if you're not recording the Zoom session, but if you're not recording the Zoom session, you're gonna wanna save those chats before you end the meeting, and you would do that just from pulling up the chats, and there's a save button right there. Another trick is only use one device per room. I'm not sure if it was in this meeting or another one I was in, but if you try to use, let's say, a laptop and a phone, or a laptop and a computer, or if you have two students who are friends and they both want to join into the same meeting at the same time and they're both in the same room, unless they're using a headset like what I have right here, there's a really high chance that you're going to get audio feedback and audio echo if they're using more than one device per room. So that's just something to look out for. Some other things that especially Zoom talks about in some of their support articles, it's a really good idea to discuss video conferencing etiquette and expectations early and often. So essentially what I took away from that is, this is a new experience for a lot of people. Some people have never used Zoom before or never been in a video conference before. A lot of the things, in-person communication just won't translate as well on video conferencing. Making sure that only one person talking at a time is something that you communicate to your students up front is going to help out a lot. If you try to have a bunch of people talking at the same time, you're really not going to be able to understand all those different conversations. So really try to make sure everyone understands to only have one person talk at a time. Also, as far as, do you expect your students to have their cameras on? Do you expect them to use the chat box when there's questions? Do you want them to hold their chats or questions until the end? Setting up and, all that expectations, at the beginning of your class, and then maybe you'll have to do it every day for the first couple weeks, just until everyone gets the hang of this. The next thing that they talk about in one of the articles is take time to promote questions. Again, this is new for a lot of people. So like I did through this training session, finish a topic and then, are there any questions? It's going to be a lot easier to handle those questions if you take them a little bit of it at a time. Luckily today I had Janelle monitoring those questions for me, but I know a lot of you, when you're teaching those classes, you're going to be having to read those chat questions on your own. So taking little chunks at a time is going to help you with that. And then with the next one, keep your chat open during the meeting. It's going to help you see if there's any problems throughout. And then we kind of already went over this annotation on the screen share, but that is an option for you to be able to allow your students to annotate on the screen, and then also for you to be able to just point things out a little more clearly sometimes. So those are all the things I definitely wanted to hit on today. So I know we're coming close to the end of the time, so I wanted to go ahead and open it up for any other questions.
Okay, we had quite a few, and it's difficult
Okay.
fielding all those questions for
Okay.
a larger group.
Okay.
But
So
there are ways to save these group chats and even these videos. So if you don't feel like you've gotten to all the questions from your students, you can go back a little bit. I don't know if you want to talk about that briefly, Shelley.
Yeah, and it could just be it could just be setting that expectation. Hey, I know we didn't get to all your questions today. Please go ahead and send them to me in an email or put them on the Canvas page. Or if you want to save those questions individually and let the students know, hey, I'll get back to you one at a time through email. However, whatever's going to work best for you. And then as far as Zoom specific questions for this training, I just want to point out, at the beginning of this video, I showed you that the K-State branding page we have. There's lots of resources there to be able to go back and find the answers to a lot of these questions. The Zoom support page is a really, really great tool to be able to go and read step-by-step instructions on how to do a lot of things in Zoom.
Okay. I'll get to just a few more before our time's up. Is there a way to know who attended the meeting so you can see after the meeting who was there, kind of to go along with what we've been talking about?
Sure, yeah, so you'll be able to, there's a report feature actually in Zoom to be able to go back and look at those meeting details, who joined the meeting, and be able to find that information after the fact. You access the reports on your profile page. I have a lot more reports than normal just because I'm a Zoom admin, so I don't know if it'd be beneficial for me to share my screen right now. But if you, on the Zoom support page, if you just type in reports, it'll show you how to access all of those reports.
Okay, and then we had a couple of questions on the whiteboard. Can all participants write on the whiteboard, and can breakout rooms share a whiteboard?
Breakout rooms, yes, can share a whiteboard. All participants can write on the whiteboard by default, but if you wanted to disable that, you can. I'm trying to find out where exactly that button is. So that's something I might have to find out exactly where the button is to disable that. But there is a way you can disable participant annotation. So it's going to be under your when you're sharing your screen. I know you guys can't see it right now because I'm the one sharing my screen, but when you're sharing your screen, your menu moves to the top of your screen, and there's going to be a more button with 3 dots on it. Under that, it says disable participants annotation so that it can stop other people from annotating on your screen.
Okay. Are there any FERPA restrictions on Zoom class recording, Shelley?
I am not sure. I know we had a HIPAA question has come up a couple times this week, and one of my coworkers forwarded me an article saying for HIPAA compliance, they're being a little bit more lenient. I can try to forward that article onto Global Campus so they could maybe put it alongside this recording.
Okay. And then can you show us once again where the profile for your Zoom meetings is accessed?
Sure, so it's from a web browser. The best way to get to your profile page is from our Zoom branding page, which was ksu.zoom.us. And there is a button over here that says manage your Zoom profile. So you would click on that, and then that's how you access. You're not going to have all these extra things that say admin. You're just going to have the stuff at the top. Let's see if I do have any meetings scheduled. So there's none under here right now, but that's also how you get to your meetings. There's also going to be a reports button. My reports button doesn't show up there because it's under my admin settings. But that's how you access your profile page from the Zoom branding page.
Okay, and then let's do one last kind of fun question here. How can you make screen sharing only a portion of your screen so you kind of see multiple people at once, kind of like Brady Bunch, I guess?
For if you're hosting the meeting or if you're a participant? Because well, let me address both. As a participant, when someone else is sharing their screen, so I'll go ahead and share mine again. You should have the ability to either be in full screen and have your video window kind of separate and floating around where you can move it, or if you're not in full screen, it can put your video windows up at the top. There's also something called side-by-side view, which should be accessed up at the top of your screen under view options or something like that, where you can do the side-by-side. The Brady Bunch look is what's called gallery view, and then the other one is called active speaker view. All the participants in this call have the ability to switch back and forth and view how they want to view it, essentially. When you're the one sharing your screen, that gets a little bit more complicated, especially if you're sharing your entire desktop. You have less flexibility as far as how you're viewing the Zoom controls if you're sharing your entire desktop. If you're just doing one application at a time, you have a little bit more control over where like your Zoom menu bar is going to be.
All right.
And with anything, practice, practice, practice. If you've never used Zoom before, the more times you do it, the easier it's going to get.
All right. Thank you, Shelley. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Shelley's session today will also, we've recorded it, so we'll be up there on that Keep Teaching Training webpage. And I posted all of those helpful links right now, so be sure to keep watching those. And if we didn't get to your questions, please email gcid@k-state.edu, and we'd be happy to get those answered. Thanks so much, everyone.